Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast, Conversations with My Friends in AI. Today, I have an amazing friend, Cassandra, joining us. Cassandra is here to talk us through kind of her approach to leadership. She's in a pretty incredible technical leadership role, which she's going to talk us through. And so we're going to kind of hear about her journey as a leader in tech. So Cassandra, thank you so much for joining us. I want to pass it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, we'd love to hear a little bit about your career path and how you got to where you are today and what you're doing today.
Awesome. Thanks, Claire. And I'm super excited to be on your podcast today. About me, I am currently VP of Engineering at Bitly. I run our core product teams and our global quality team. And it was no easy path to get here, I will say, and not like a career ladder, climbing the ladder, so to speak. There's a lot of different ways to get to where you want to go. And so I started kind of, funnily enough, in my degree was in English literature and computer science.
Yeah, wow.
I couldn't pick one. It was hard to pick. And then I kind of went, after I got my bachelor's, I took a side step and wasn't sure what to do. So I did kind of IT on the side and admin assistant role at a very small little company. And then I was like, what do? I don't know. I went back to the drawing board, went back, got my master's degree in computer information systems. And from there, I ended up at Oracle, a pretty large company. I came in as a new grad into the support organization, which I didn't really even think of that as a possible career path for me. When I was going to school, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I could probably do that. And I grew in my skills there. It turns out I'm pretty good at customer facing and support
Yeah.
roles. So that was fun. And I was there for almost 7 years, and I grew from like the junior level all the way to like senior principal.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's kind of a fast progression, I guess, you could say.
Yeah.
Through all the ranks, and then I kind of felt like, oh, what do I do from here? I think we all get there every
Uh-huh.
now and then. And I then ended up going to a startup. So I went from a big corporation to a startup where they had just gotten Series A. I was employee 50. And
Wow, that's a small little startup. That's like not garage, but that's like still small.
it
How
was,
small is a
yes.
garage to Series A? Yeah.
Yes, we were small at the time. And then I stayed through Series C for there. But yeah, I was like the first support person that they hired for that team. And it was fun. I mean, I honestly loved being in that environment because you get to wear so many hats, you learn all the things. And I also got the opportunity to like fall a little bit into the leadership side of, being a leader in tech. So from being individual contributor to a manager, building a team, to also being an individual contributor, because you can't not do both in a company of that
Yeah.
size. And then I built a global technical support team there and got up to director level. And then again was like, what do I do now? After seeing them through Series C and things were kind of steady and not really growing as much, I felt like maybe it's time to go back to the drawing board. I had always thought like I would be more on the development side of things. And so I decided to try out for some roles that were more developer product development centric. And I ended up at Bitly, and here I am.
That is an amazing story. There's a couple things that stand out there that I wanted to dig into. It sounds like you transitioned from a very large company, Oracle, very large, very stable, very kind of enterprise vibes there, to the chaos of a very small startup. So tell us about, first of all, I want to hear a little bit of like what motivated you to take on that challenge. And then also like, that's something that I think a lot of people experience in their career or wonder if they should try to seek that experience. And so I'm curious, like, just kind of what that transition was like and what you kind of learned from it, transition from that enterprise to startup.
Absolutely. And honestly, I would recommend for anyone listening who's like still not quite sure where they fit in their career to try both or try mid-size. I think we all have environments that we thrive in particularly, and we might not know what that environment is if we don't try out
That
for
is
different.
so true. Yeah, that actually I had that experience too, because I've done large enterprise as well as startup. And like, yeah, like I didn't know what was going to be my favorite or where I felt like I was having the most impact until I was actually there. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this kind of matches my vibe.
Exactly. We all have different vibes. And,
Yeah.
I think different companies in the enterprise versus small versus mid-size, they all have, different things that they can offer, like the pros and cons. And, as I mentioned, I started at Oracle right out of grad school, and I kind of grew. I got a promotion every 2 years, pretty steady. I was able to figure out like, okay, I am bored. Let me find something else I can do. So I
Yeah.
kept like picking and learning new things, and I got this steady promotion until I reached kind of like the highest I could, and then I kind of went sideways. So like there is like the ability to kind of move around to get, with that growth mindset of like, how do I keep learning and improving my skill set? And it's good for that. You have stability, you have the kind of like the expectation of like, okay, this is my niche, this is what I do from 8 to 5 every day. And there's not really surprises unless you're like looking for them, right? If you go out and try to get the surprises, then you can find them, but it's much harder. And so I just kind of felt in that environment, like maybe it wasn't my vibe, because I continually had to like try to find things that felt more fulfilling,
Yeah.
and felt like I was making a big impact.
Okay. Yeah. You're a startup kid then.
I'm a
That's
startup
the
kid. Yes.
mindset. Yeah. Kind of
Yeah,
thrive on
exactly.
chaos, like to solve problems, want to wear different hats. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. That is it. I am 100%. And when I got I didn't seek out the opportunity. It kind of found me. And I'm a strong believer of like kind of listening to the universe. And sometimes it tries to tell you something,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah. Things kind of
And
for a reason, give you the opportunities, growth opportunities you kind of needed. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So when it kind of came to me and I was in a place where I was like, kind of like, what do I do now? Like staring at the drawing board, like,
Yeah.
how am I, going to continue to grow? I mean, I'm still pretty early in my career, and I don't want to just stay here my whole career. I mean, it was 7 years, and I want to see what else is out there. And then just by chance, I get a recruiter call, and then it all just worked out. And I have no regrets because, yeah, like I said, I was a startup girl. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I get to do all the things. I make a huge impact. Everything I do has reverberating impacts to like the success of the company and the success of my team and the success of just myself even. So I really thrived on the chaos.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I think we have actually had a similar statement I saw on your podcast before.
Yeah.
I out of chaos, there's always opportunity. And
Yeah, that opportunity and chaos, right? Because it's opportunity to solve problems. Like I feel like some people will become frustrated by problems, but the great thing about a startup is like if you see a problem, you can solve it. Because there's also that ability to like put on different hats. Like maybe you're hired as like an engineer or customer success. But like if you see a problem and put on a different hat for a different role and go try to fix it, no one's going to be like, oh, please don't step on my toes. They're all just going to be like, awesome, thanks for the help. Like that's a very valuable contribution. You see the impact. So you're kind of like facilitated in a way just by the structure of the company being so small, to actually solve problems, like have impact. So it's definitely,
it's fluid, yeah, because you can
yeah,
you
yeah,
can jump in and you learning. I mean, in everything that you do, because you get to kind of like and see what you want like and what you don't
Yeah.
like, and things that you the types of problems you really thrive in, and the types that maybe are not your quite your strong suit or your jam.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I do think one thing that helped me, like I'm at my first startup right now, and I'm quite a bit few years into my career at this point. I did the enterprise first, and at the enterprise, the larger companies, I had access to really great mentors, a little bit of grace given on the learning curve. And it's probably different for like every startup and every person, but I am glad that I did the larger company first to kind of like get that kind of solid skill set, and then kind of face the chaos of the startup where I'm a little bit more prepared. But it's kind of a trade-off too. I'm curious your thoughts on this, because I have seen people just go into a startup as their first job, and the learning opportunity there is also incredible because now you get to like do a lot of different things instead of just one function. So there's a bit of a trade-off, maybe like less mentorship at a startup, a little bit more pressure, but more opportunity to do more things. So I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts on that kind of trade-off there.
It is a really tough trade-off. And I think as a leader, at like a growing business, and also as a leader that I have seen, at startups, I do think that depending on the startup, like you said, and who you are as a person, like what you thrive in,
Mm.
it would make a big difference. I mean, obviously I was the same. I started at Oracle. I had done a little internship previously at kind of a startup-y vibe when I
Okay,
was in my
cool.
grad
Yeah.
school. So I had kind of like experienced it a little bit ahead of
Yeah.
time. But I was the same as you. I started there. And I do think you get like, you put your marbles in a jar, your confidence marbles,
Uh-huh.
and you have access to mentors. You do have kind of like, oh, this is what working looks like, especially if
Yeah,
you're like
right.
new to the
Yeah.
scene. And even once I joined the startup and was promoted, my first promotion to like director level, I went back to some of my previous mentors who were director level at the corporate world, and
Yeah.
basically like, what do I do? Like, what
Ah,
happened?
it's
Like,
great to have those connections. Please help.
yeah, please help. I don't know what this
Yeah.
means here, because this is like I'm paving a path in this new
Yeah.
company, but like it was really valuable to know that like some other people are doing that at, a place that I was, and they were doing it well. And so
Mhm.
like that is helpful to kind of figure out how to pave the right path, and know that you're doing the right things. So I don't know, it's hard. I would say though, I have hired some really amazing humans like directly out of boot camp,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
they have thrived like
It can
at
be
a
such a
startup.
great learning experience and like growth. Like you just see some people like get into a startup and just like the growth is like exponential there. It's really cool to see.
It is really cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the funnest, and honestly, that's like my funnest thing I like about working, as a leader, is to see the growth of humans and
Yeah.
into like whatever they enjoy, and with a startup, you do have a lot more opportunities, like you said, to put on different hats. But you have to be comfortable with the unknown and like
Yeah.
making mistakes
That's the
too.
personality type that thrives. Is like, can you try something, fail, and iterate quickly? And like failure is okay. It's like kind of like creating an environment where that failure is okay. Like, okay, we tried this, it's not working, let's change it. Is kind of the fast iteration that I think sets people up for success. Good segue. You started talking a little bit about leadership of teams. I would love to hear a little bit more about your path into management. Maybe your first management role, how you got there, and then you've been managing teams for a long time now. I'd love to kind of hear about like your management approach and why you love it.
Yeah. So we kind of touched a little bit on it. So I really fell into leadership
Yeah.
again, wearing hats at a startup. I think, well, let me preface, I'm going to go back a little bit. You can be a leader in any role. And I strongly believe that. I think that we
Right. Oh yeah.
all are leaders, regardless of your title. You could be a junior engineer and lead, people who might look up to you for whatever
Mhm.
reason it is.
Yeah.
And, I think I was a leader at, the big corporation as I grew and, kind of helped build myself there, I feel like I did do a good job of like the individual contributor leadership. And then I kind of fell into the people management side when I joined the startup because I was the first person they hired for technical support. And then just by default, they were like, you should build this team out.
And you're like, okay.
And I was like, sure, okay,
Yeah.
I'll try. And out of that, I got some headcount. I got to hire a few people, and I didn't know what I was doing, really. I mean, I had good managers in the past. I've also had bad managers in
Learn
the
from
past.
both. Yep, for sure.
Yeah, so I've seen what I like and what I
Yeah.
don't like. And but I still have no idea what I was doing. It's like, I mean, you go into people management and you're just like, I mean, it can't be that hard, right? But people are complex human beings. We're all many layers, and especially in an environment like a startup, it can be daunting to like bring people in and like try to train, and then you're also trying to be an individual contributor. But I absolutely found that I love leadership because I love coaching and mentoring, which I kind of did quite a bit, at my previous role. And then now I could really do it in an official capacity and support people in finding like their path or like their next move in their career. And the beautiful thing about the team that I grew in at this company was that I got to, it was kind of a team that was like a gateway team. So you bring someone into support, they learn about the company, you get to learn a lot about, all of the product, the customers,
Oh, yeah.
like you get like tons of information that then you can use to like, okay, well, I like the company, I like this, what else can I do here? And
Yeah.
so almost I started building like this engine of like bringing people in, training them, and then they would find like their niche
That's
elsewhere, whether it
very
be,
relatable. Yeah,
yeah,
you and I are kind of building out this, I'm building out the same function right now, because it is a support team. Like we're customer facing, customer success, and so we have like customer success engineers, but then we're also building a support function. And the way I think about this is like, this is the rock star factory. I don't expect anyone, unless they want to move into leading that team, to really want to stay in customer support for the rest of their lives, unless they're very unique and have a passion for it. And some people do, and they just impress me so much. But a lot of people get a lot of value from that kind of customer support role to do what you're saying. They learn the product, the company, the different roles really well. And so it's one of those roles that like provides like incredible growth trajectory. And sometimes that growth is off my team, and that's okay because that's their career path. So if they start on customer support and they're like, hey, I really want to become an engineer, or I want to go do pre-sales work, providing that kind of path for them, like they've already deep dived into our customers, our product and everything, they're kind of positioned for it. So it's the one team where it's like, I don't mind the churn. I actually a little bit want to facilitate the growth off of it. And we call it the Rockstar Factory, which
I
is
love that.
kind of fun. Yeah. Is that kind of similar how you built that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I had people move to pre-sales. Had
Oh,
people
cool.
like implementation engineers to like, professional services,
Yeah.
actually building stuff for customers. I had people move to engineering. I had, it was just like a constant inflow, and it was cool for me because like I loved doing that, like
Yeah.
seeing someone come in, be successful, help them learn, and then also help them find like the thing that they like. Super powerful. And I think without that experience, I may not have be kind of the same leader I am today,
Hmm.
because it's really rewarding to see people grow and
Yeah.
find their niche, and to know that like, oh, I helped facilitate that, but also they did it all themselves.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. You and I are kind of building out the same stuff there. That's so cool.
That is really cool. Same.
Awesome. Yeah, dude, I love it. Let's talk about leadership style. There's different strategies for leading a team. At a startup, you are challenged with that player coach kind of need to be like a coach, but like also an IC. At least that is my challenge right now as a leader at a startup. You want to be able to like get in the weeds, solve problems and get hands on still. You're not like so removed from the technical work that you don't have to do it anymore. But you also don't want to just like do everything for people when you should be delegating, giving them that opportunity. So there's always that balance of like player coach. I'm curious how you approach that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you said, at a startup, it's a very delicate balance.
Yeah.
And I think if you do start in leadership at a startup, there is, kind of a turning point, right? Where either the startup is getting to a point where you should be delegating more and less of a
Yep.
player. And I always say, like, you have to give away your Legos to do other things. Like, you have to build other Legos, but you have to give some of
Right.
them
Yep.
away. Which, as an engineered mindset, as a person who did the player coach leadership in the past, it's such a hard transition. I think
Yeah.
we all struggle with that, right? I mean, like,
Huh.
especially when you talked about, we just love solving problems. I love solving problems. So, like,
Yeah, it's kind of that engineering mindset there. Yep.
yes. So then going to, instead of, oh, I'm going to solve this problem, like, how do I empower, like, changing that mindset of, like, how do I empower my team to solve that problem? How do I facilitate that? And I think that's where the mentorship mindset comes in, and just really trying to be growth minded for myself so that I can help others, like, be also grow. So I definitely feel like I have experienced that transition more, like I experienced it at the previous startup and where I am now, where it's like, you have to turn the giving away Legos into new challenges, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there's always new challenges to solve at companies. They
Yeah.
just might not be like in the weeds as much as you want to be or you used to be. And it might feel very like alien planet. Like sometimes you're like on a different
Yeah.
planet and you're like, wow, I'm over here. I have like these big, like wild mountains I have to
Like the
climb.
Wild West, like you're kind of on the frontier like all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then also strongly feeling like as a leader, I want to empower my teams to grow and give them that growth mindset. And if I can't make that transition and give them Legos and then also the support, to facilitate their growth, then I'm doing a disservice to them. So in a lot of ways,
Trina's joining us. She's joining the conversation.
thank you.
I've been in meeting all day. She's like, "Are you done yet?"
Yeah, come hang out with me.
Um, no, that is really useful. So what you're saying there is kind of like to balance the kind of player coach to still like be hands-on enough that you have the context to help your team with stuff. Maybe the approach here is to kind of be hands-on with the newer stuff, the stuff that's the frontier. Like, oh, there's this problem over here that no one knows how to solve. I'm going to go solve it hands-on and teach my team how to do it versus like, oh, I'm just going to do the stuff hands-on because I'm so used to it. So maybe not doing the stuff you already know how to do, but kind of like out on the frontier, figuring out solutions, then kind of sharing that with your team.
Exactly. Yeah. Bringing them along on the
Yeah.
journeys of the new frontiers, and like on those stuff I know how to do, figuring out, oh, how do I empower you to do those now and give you the right tools to do that, so you can grow.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. Tell me about your leadership role now at Bitly. So this is a bigger company, maybe not so much of a startup anymore. How would you kind of characterize it? How big are you guys, and what are you kind of doing day to day in that role?
Yeah, so we have grown a lot in the last 4 years. So we were kind of startup-y vibes, even though we've been around for a long time.
Yeah,
I mean, we're kind of ubiquitous with the internet, which is fun.
sure.
Uh,
Yep.
but we were less than 100 when I started. So we were
Okay.
still a small company. And we have really hit the ground into scale up. scale up stage over the course of the 4 years that I've been here, which is super fun. So, the engineering team, I think at the time were probably around 20 humans, and now we're at, I want to say 90-ish
Okay.
humans. So
Yeah.
we've seen quite a shift of, hiring, and then total, I think we're a little over 300 humans working at Bitly now. So, I mean, just very night and day difference. And this is where we were just talking about the player coach and like giving away Legos.
Yeah.
Definitely the things that I did 4 years ago at Bitly are not the things that I do now. Back then I would be very in the weeds of all of the, very technical pieces of like very specific, like down to the spikes and like sprint planning and all of those
Yeah. Yeah.
things. And then now as we've grown and we've built out a very wonderful high functioning leadership team, I have been able to like kind of elevate. I still know all of the things that they're doing. And I mean, if someone asked me, I'd be like, oh yeah, this person's leading that. And, here's the stuff. But I don't, I focus on like the new frontier, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So a day to day, I help my leadership team with their goals and, kind of setting strategy and vision for, kind of connecting like the senior leadership level, so the C-level vision to, down to the management level, working with my directors and the people leaders, and kind of just helping set the stage and strategy and keeping them all working well and
Yeah.
knowing where they're going. And on top of that, process, coming up with new ways to work to handle the scale that we have hit. I mean,
Mhm.
like, what are changes we need to do to our bug process? What are changes we need to do to help better support our customers? How do we improve the quality of our product and what we're doing on the engineering side? One big thing that we have had a huge focus on is accessibility. Like, how do we improve the accessibility of our product and incorporate it into the entire software development lifecycle, so that it's, forefront of designers' minds, and then our engineers, when they're doing they're, implementing something, that they're doing all of the necessary things to make sure that we're accessible, and then having QA go through and, actually verify we're accessible.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
coming up with like, so a day in the life is really just kind of figuring out like how all of these pieces can scale and we
Yeah.
can improve, and, supporting the teams to do that and giving them the tools to do that.
Yeah, so it sounds like quite a bit of change management as well as like kind of aligning people around the kind of broader vision as you go to really kind of like manage the team to scale as the company scales, which is always very challenging.
Yeah, but also very fun. It's
Yeah.
challenging but fun.
Okay, that brings me to my second to last question here. I would love to hear your favorite things about what you do.
Well, I kind of already mentioned it before, but I love growing humans. I think it is just really a wonderful experience to see people really find their niche, like the click moment when it's like, that's, oh, I love this. This is fun. When I see people in their zone, I like to point out like, you were in your zone today, and then seeing them grow, and whether it be, where we are now, or like finding a better place for them, like,
Sure, yeah,
but I mean, I just really like seeing the growth
it's
of
rewarding. Yeah.
it's very rewarding. Yes, I love it. I love mentoring. I mean, I even, volunteer and mentor outside of my people, because I just love it. That's like
You're busy.
I thrive on it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool to hear. Awesome. Well, the last question I have for you is, I would love to hear your advice that you would give to other women who are looking to get into a leadership role in tech. What have you uniquely experienced there? Kind of what kind of guidance can you give to our audience here?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, save the hard one for last.
I would give, I actually just did a kind of a presentation a little bit on navigating your career labyrinth.
Uh-huh.
It's what I called it. And I'll give a couple of pieces of advice. I think one, you should be open to new opportunities,
Mm.
no matter, even if they're scary. Even if you feel like you have that internal imposter, which I think we all do at some
Yeah.
point in our time, you should raise your hand. Always just say like, yeah, I'm open to doing that. I'm open to giving. Even if you don't feel like you're prepared, or if you could do it, you just got to do it.
Feeling in over your head, that actually resonates. Like every time I felt in over my head, like, oh, I'm not qualified for this, or I shouldn't be here. That was kind of the biggest growth opportunities that I've ever had. And typically always crushed it. But like also, you don't have to do it alone. Like you have peers, you have a team around you. So kind of relying on that too has been helpful.
That was gonna say my second thing is like
Oh yeah.
find your people. So I think that
Yeah.
we're same again. We're just the same
That's
person.
awesome.
Find your people, because you need people that are around you that will help you when you do feel in over your head, who will push
Yeah.
you to do better. And also will just like give you the confidence that you might need, when you're feeling down, because like you might raise your hand for something and it might not be the right fit, or you might not, you might realize, oh, I hate this. I don't
Yeah.
want to do
It's a good
it.
experience. Like try it and find out.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I've had people do that even on my teams where
Mm.
they try something, they were like, hey, I want to move out of the previous company. I want to move into engineering. And they
Sure.
went there for, 4 or 5 months. And then they're like, I actually really don't like this. And they came back. They came back to support. And that's cool. I mean, it's not a linear path, I think,
Mm.
ever for any career. So like knowing that you have people surrounding you to help you, and finding those people, along with just finding your inner badass, I guess I should
I love
say.
that. Yep. Yep. Kind of putting yourself in over your head and having that confidence, I think is really key here. It's challenging. Like it is going to feel scary, I think, at every step, really.
Mhm. But as long as you have people and you
Yeah.
know that like it's okay, like you give yourself space and grace, if not every time that you do jump in, you might hit a dead end, and
Yeah.
that's okay. But you wouldn't have known if you hadn't have done that, right? And
Yeah.
it's
It's like
better to
that's like a resilience to failure. Because I've seen some people will hit a roadblock, try something that they're not good at, or try to learn a new skill and maybe don't master it immediately. It's not perfect. And I see a propensity to give up that actually gets in the way of people's success. It's like you don't have to be perfect. You have to try something. And if you fail, keep going or go try a different thing and get better instead of like, oh, I'm not good. Like I feel like that kind of feeds a little bit into like imposter syndrome. But yeah, it's really like what you're describing there. I think it's like a resilience.
Yeah, I will say
Yeah,
something I tell my kids all the time, which when they're like, I'm not good at this, you're not good at it yet.
there you go.
You may decide, you know what, I am not good at this, and I probably don't ever want to be good at this. And
Yeah,
that's
but don't do that on the first
okay.
failure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you won't know unless you try, right? Like
yeah,
you won't know if you don't like it and you don't want to put in the work for it. And so you just gotta go for it.
totally. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. All this advice has been really, really valuable to me. So thank you for walking me through it. I hope our listeners really got the same value from it. Yeah, thanks for coming on the show and sharing your experience. Any kind of last things you wanted to say, anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to share with the audience?
I don't think so. I think we covered quite a bit. If I was gonna leave again with anyone to like just put up your hand and go for it. What's the worst that could happen? That's something I have to tell myself all the time. Like what's
Yeah,
the worst that can happen? It's not for me. Well, then
yeah,
I have more knowledge about myself, and that's always a good thing. So
absolutely. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with the audience.
yeah, thank
Appreciate
you
you
so
coming
much
on
for having
today.
me.